The heat wave had broken records across Phoenix for 14 straight days. My living room was a cool 72 degrees when Ashley arrived at my door, mascara streaked down her flushed cheeks, her designer blouse clinging to her back with sweat. She'd been knocking for 3 minutes. I could see her through the peephole, wilting like a forgotten houseplant. "Margaret, please," she called through the door, her voice cracking. "The kids are burning up. Just let us stay for a few hours. Please." I took a slow sip of my iced lemonade, the glass beading with condensation in my perfectly climate-controlled sanctuary. Through the peephole, I watched her press her forehead against my door, defeated. Her Mercedes sat in my driveway, windows down, 2 sweaty children visible in the backseat, fanning themselves with coloring books. My hand rested on the doorknob. I could have turned it. I could have let her in. Instead, I walked back to my recliner, picked up my book, and turned up the air conditioning another degree. The thermostat clicked obediently. 71 degrees now. They had no idea what was coming. But to understand why I let Ashley wait, why I let my own grandchildren sit in that car for 20 more minutes before I finally opened my door, you need to understand what brought us to this moment. You need to know what she said to me 2 weeks earlier, when the roles were reversed and I was the one begging. 3 months before that scorching July afternoon, I was a different version of myself. Or perhaps I was simply the version everyone expected me to remain. Margaret Chen, 6 to 7 years old, widow of 8 years, devoted mother and grandmother, the family's emotional backbone and unpaid labor force. My husband James had left me comfortable but not wealthy. The house was paid off, a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a quiet Phoenix suburb, along with his pension and Social Security. I'd worked as an elementary school teacher for 35 years before retiring, so I had my own pension too. Not luxury, but security. Independence. Dignity. My son Michael was my only child, and I loved him with the fierce, uncomplicated devotion that mothers reserve for sons they raised alone after divorce. His father had disappeared when Michael was 4, leaving me to work double shifts and night school, packing lunches at midnight and grading papers while he slept. Every achievement of his felt like mine too: his college graduation, his engineering degree, his beautiful wedding to Ashley 9 years ago. Ashley was lovely at first. Polished, ambitious, warm in that practiced way that some women master like a second language. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, dressed impeccably, and spoke fluently about wine pairings and European vacations. I was proud my son had chosen someone so accomplished. The grandchildren came quickly: Emma, now 7, and Lucas, 5. I became Grandma Maggie, the babysitter they called when date night beckoned or business trips demanded. I didn't mind. I loved those children with a tenderness that made my chest ache. I taught Emma to bake my mother's almond cookies. I built elaborate Lego cities with Lucas. I was needed, useful, loved. But somewhere in those 9 years, the requests became expectations. The gratitude became entitlement. "Mom, can you watch the kids Saturday? Ashley has a work thing." "Mom, we're going to Cabo for our anniversary. Can you stay at our place for the week?" "Mom, Emma's sick again. Can you pick her up from school? We're both in meetings." I said yes. I always said yes. What else did I have to do? That's what Ashley's expression seemed to ask, though she never said it aloud. Not until this summer. The warning signs had been there for months, subtle as shifting sand. Ashley's impatience when I asked about their vacation. Michael's distraction when I called, conversations cut short with promises to call back that never materialized. The way they exchanged glances when I mentioned my own needs, my doctor's appointments, my book club, my small routines that gave structure to solitary days. I should have seen it coming. But love makes us willfully blind. The heat wave began the last week of June. Phoenix summers are brutal, but this was apocalyptic: temperatures soaring to 118 degrees, power grids straining, elderly neighbors collapsing in their homes. The news warned vulnerable populations to stay indoors, stay hydrated, stay cool. On June 28th, my air conditioning died. I woke up at 3 a.m. soaked in sweat, disoriented, my heart pounding in the oppressive heat. The house felt like an oven. I stumbled to the thermostat, 94 degrees inside. The AC unit outside sat silent, its usual hum absent. I called the emergency HVAC line and got a recording. Due to high demand, wait times are currently 7 to 10 days. 7 to 10 days. In 118-degree heat. At 6 to 7 years old. I called Michael at 7 a.m., trying to keep the panic from my voice. Honey, my air conditioning broke. They can't come for over a week. Could I possibly stay with you and Ashley until? Mom, this week. Michael's tone carried that particular exhaustion of someone about to deliver bad news. Ashley's working from home on a huge presentation. The house is chaos. Emma has a stomach bug. It's really not a good time. I understand, but Michael, it's going to be over 100 degrees all week. The doctor said at my last checkup I need to be careful with heat because of my blood pressure medication. Can you stay at a hotel? We could chip in maybe $100 if that helps. The offer was so absurdly inadequate that I actually laughed. Hotels are $300 a night during emergencies like this, honey. I can't afford. Hold on. Muffled voices in the background. Ashley's voice, sharp. Tell her we can't, Michael. Just tell her. Michael came back on, his voice flat with the resignation of a man who'd lost an argument before he began it. Mom, Ashley says we really can't have guests right now. Maybe you could open windows. Use fans. It's only a week. Only a week. In deadly heat. I felt something crack inside my chest. Please, Michael. I'm not asking for a vacation. I'm asking for somewhere safe to sleep while my AC gets repaired. I'm your mother. Another pause. Then Ashley's voice came clearly through the speaker, sharp and dismissive. Margaret, you're being dramatic. You're old, but you're not that old. Skip the AC for a few days, you won't die from a little heat. People survived for centuries without air conditioning. You'll be fine. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, phone in hand, sweat already trickling down my spine at 7:15 in the morning. My son hadn't defended me. Hadn't said a word. He'd simply let his wife dismiss my safety, my life, as if I were an inconvenient obligation rather than the woman who'd sacrificed everything to raise him. The house was silent except for my own breathing. I looked around at the kitchen where I'd packed thousands of lunches, the living room where I'd rocked Michael through nightmares and fevers, the spare bedroom I'd kept ready for grandchildren's sleepovers. I'd given this family everything. And in my moment of genuine need, I'd been told I was being dramatic. That I wouldn't die from a little heat. I felt something I'd never allowed myself to feel toward my son, not hurt, but clarity. Cold, hard clarity about exactly where I stood in the hierarchy of their lives. I smiled then, standing in my sweltering kitchen. Not a happy smile. A different kind entirely. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I spent that first day at the public library, wonderfully air-conditioned, pretending to read while my mind worked through possibilities. I returned home at sunset when the house had cooled to a merely unbearable 89 degrees, and I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my childhood friend Susan, who'd retired to Flagstaff where the mountain air kept summer temperatures mild. Sue, I need a favor. Can I stay with you for about 10 days? Of course. What's wrong? I'll explain when I get there. I'll leave tomorrow morning. The second call was to the HVAC company. I'd like to move up my appointment if anything opens up. Money is no object. I'll pay emergency rates. We have someone available tomorrow at noon if you can pay the premium. I'll be here. I packed a small bag that night, but I didn't tell Michael or Ashley I was leaving Phoenix. Let them think what they wanted. Let them assume I was suffering in silence, too proud or too weak to find alternatives. I wanted them comfortable in their dismissal, secure in their cruelty. By noon the next day, my air conditioning was repaired, a $1,200 fix I paid without hesitation. By 2 p.m., I was in Flagstaff, sitting on Susan's porch with iced tea, telling her everything. Susan, who'd been a labor rights attorney for 40 years before retiring, listened with the intense focus I remembered from our college days. When I finished, she asked one question. What do you want to happen here, Maggie? I want them to understand what they did. I want them to need me and be told no. Understandable. But here's what I'm concerned about, those grandchildren. Emma and Lucas didn't do anything wrong. She was right, of course. My anger wasn't with the children. It was with my son who'd been raised better, and with Ashley who'd revealed exactly who she was when it cost her nothing to be kind. What if, Susan said slowly, you let this play out naturally? The forecast says this heat wave could last 3 weeks. You stay here, comfortable and safe. Your house sits empty with perfect air conditioning. And you wait. Wait for what? For them to need what they told you to do without. I understood immediately. Susan saw what I'd been too hurt to see clearly. Ashley and Michael lived in a newly constructed McMansion in North Phoenix, all vaulted ceilings and open concept design. Beautiful but cheaply built, like so many homes in the 2020s. The kind of house where AC units failed regularly under strain. You think their air conditioning will break? I think, Susan said, that karma has a sense of timing. And I think you should stay right here, comfortable and unreachable, until the universe decides they've learned enough. So I stayed. I forwarded my mail. I didn't answer texts from Michael asking if I was okay. I let my phone go to voicemail when Ashley called 3 days later. I posted nothing on social media. I simply disappeared into the cool mountain air of Flagstaff, reading novels on Susan's porch, sleeping deeply for the first time in months. And on July 11th, exactly 2 weeks after Ashley told me I wouldn't die from a little heat, Susan handed me my phone with a knowing smile. 15 missed calls. 23 texts. All from Ashley. The last text read, "Margaret, please call me back. Our AC died. I'm sorry about before. The kids are miserable. Can we please stay at your place just for a few days?" I read it twice, my finger hovering over the reply button. Then I turned off my phone and went back to my novel. I'd let them wait a little longer. Just as they'd let me wait when I needed help. It was only fair. I drove back to Phoenix on July 13th, timing my arrival for mid-afternoon when the heat was most punishing. The temperature read 117 degrees on my car dashboard. The drive from Flagstaff took 3 hours, descending from pine forests into the moonscape of summer Phoenix, where the asphalt shimmered with heat mirages and the air tasted like copper. My house was exactly as I'd left it, cool, dark, peaceful. I'd had a neighbor check it twice while I was gone, and I'd kept the AC running at 75 degrees, knowing it would make my electric bill nearly $400 this month. Worth every penny. I changed into comfortable clothes, made myself a pitcher of lemonade, and finally turned on my phone. 47 missed calls. 68 text messages. The progression told the whole story. Day 1, Mom, call me when you get this. Hope you're okay. Day 3, Mom, seriously, where are you? I'm getting worried. Day 5, our AC broke. It's going to be at least a week for repairs. Can we stay with you? Day 7, Mom, please. The kids are suffering. Emma threw up from heat exhaustion. Why aren't you answering? Day 10, I don't know what we did to deserve this. We need help and you've just disappeared. This isn't like you. Day 12, we're desperate. Ashley's parents won't help. Hotels are $500 a night. Please. Day 14, this morning we're coming to your house. We'll wait until you come home. I checked the doorbell camera app on my phone. They'd been there since 11 a.m., 4 hours in the heat, parked in my driveway, unable to get inside because I'd never given them a key. Smart of me, in retrospect. I could see Ashley in the driver's seat, hair plastered to her forehead. Michael pacing beside the car, phone to his ear. Emma and Lucas in the back seat, red-faced and listless, sharing a bottle of water. Something twisted in my chest looking at those children. They truly hadn't done anything wrong. But they needed to see this. They needed to see what happened when cruelty was answered with consequence. I waited another 20 minutes. Let them really feel it. Let the desperation sink in completely. Then I finally walked to my front door. Ashley spotted me through the window and lunged out of the car, stumbling slightly in the heat. Michael was right behind her. The relief on their faces was almost comical, like prisoners seeing a rescue helicopter. Margaret. Ashley's voice cracked. Oh, thank God. We've been waiting, the kids are so hot, please. Can we just come inside for a few hours? We'll figure something else out, I promise. But right now. I looked at her calmly through the door glass. Our eyes met. And I let her see exactly what I was thinking. I reached for the doorknob. Her face flooded with relief. Then I walked away from the door, back toward my kitchen. Margaret. Ashley pounded on the door. What are you doing? Open the door. I made it all the way to the kitchen, poured myself more lemonade, and returned slowly to the entryway. They were both there now, Ashley's palm flat against the glass, Michael looking confused and frightened. I opened the door exactly 3 inches, the chain lock still engaged. Cool air rushed out past me, and I watched Ashley's eyes close in longing at the feeling of it. Yes? I asked politely. Mom. Michael's voice was hoarse. Please. We need to come inside. Just for a few hours. The kids. You won't die from a little heat, I said, my voice pleasant and matter-of-fact. People survived for centuries without air conditioning. You'll be fine. The color drained from Ashley's face as she recognized her own words. Michael looked between us, comprehension dawning slowly. That was, Ashley started. I didn't mean. Didn't you? I took a sip of my lemonade, letting the ice cubes clink. Because you seemed quite certain 2 weeks ago when my air conditioning failed. When I called begging for help. When I told you my doctor said I needed to stay cool because of my blood pressure medication. You remember what you said, don't you, Ashley? I'm sorry. The words tumbled out desperately. I'm so sorry. I was stressed, I wasn't thinking. You told me I was being dramatic. You said I was old, but not that old. I smiled. Well, you're young and healthy, so I'm sure you'll manage just fine. Mom, please. Michael's voice broke. We're sorry. We should have helped you. We were wrong. But Emma and Lucas are your responsibility, I finished. Not mine. You made that very clear. I started to close the door. Wait. Ashley grabbed the edge of the door, her fingers white-knuckled. What do you want? Do you want me to beg? Fine. I'm begging. Please let us in. Please. I'll do anything. I considered her for a long moment. She looked genuinely destroyed, not just hot and uncomfortable, but emotionally shattered. Michael looked worse somehow, the recognition of his own cowardice written across his face. Behind them, Emma had started crying in the car, and Lucas was trying to comfort her with his little hand on her shoulder. Here's what's going to happen, I said finally. I'm going to let the children come inside. Emma and Lucas can cool off, have some snacks, watch TV. They can stay as long as needed. Relief flooded their faces. You too, I continued, my voice hardening, will wait in the car. What? Michael looked stunned. The children are innocent. But you both need to understand what you did. You need to feel what it's like to ask for help and be refused. To be told your suffering doesn't matter. To be dismissed by someone who should protect you. Mom, that's fair. I suggested. Yes, I think it is. You have 15 seconds to decide. The children can come in, or you can all leave. Your choice. I could see the calculation in Ashley's eyes, pride warring with desperation. But the sound of Emma's crying made the decision for them. Fine, Ashley whispered. The kids can come in. I opened the door fully, and Emma and Lucas stumbled inside like refugees, their small bodies immediately relaxing in the cool air. I hugged them both, feeling their overheated skin against mine, and my resolve almost cracked. Almost. But I needed them to see this too. To understand that actions have consequences, that cruelty isn't consequence-free just because it's directed at someone old, someone family, someone who's always said yes before. I led the children to the living room, set them up with juice boxes and crackers, turned on their favorite show. Then I returned to the door where Michael and Ashley still stood, looking shell-shocked. How long? Michael asked quietly. Until you really understand, I said. Until you can tell me exactly what you did wrong and why it matters. Until I believe you've learned something. I closed the door in their faces and locked it. Through the peephole, I watched them walk back to the car in defeat, Ashley's shoulders shaking with either rage or tears. Michael sat in the driver's seat, head in his hands. I felt no triumph. Just a deep, aching sadness that it had come to this. But some lessons, I'd learned in my 6 to 7 years, can only be taught through consequence. They lasted 45 minutes. I watched through the window as Michael and Ashley wilted in the Mercedes, occasionally glancing toward my house with expressions that evolved from anger to discomfort to genuine distress. The temperature inside their car must have reached 130 degrees or more. I'd read stories of people dying in less time. At the 40-minute mark, Michael got out and approached my door again. He knocked softly. I was sitting with Emma and Lucas, who'd recovered beautifully with AC, snacks, and cartoons. They barely noticed me get up. "Mom." Michael's voice through the door was different now. Smaller. "Can we talk? Please?" I opened it. He looked awful, soaked in sweat, face dangerously red, swaying slightly. Heat exhaustion was beginning to set in. "Come inside," I said, stepping back. "Both of you." Ashley followed him in, and they stood dripping in my entryway, too defeated to even express relief. I handed them each a bottle of cold water. "Drink slowly," I instructed. "Sit down before you fall down." They collapsed onto my couch, drinking the water like it was salvation itself. The children glanced over, saw their parents were okay, and went back to their show. Kids are remarkably resilient when their immediate needs are met. I sat in my recliner across from them and waited. Michael spoke first. "I failed you." The simple directness of it caught me off guard. "When you called asking for help, I should have said yes immediately. I should have told Ashley we were going to help my mother, period, end of discussion. Instead, I let her convince me you were being dramatic. I let her dismiss your needs. I prioritized her convenience over your safety." His voice cracked. "You could have died, Mom. Elderly people die in heat waves all the time. You could have had a stroke or a heart attack, and I told you to just open some windows." Tears were streaming down his face now, mixing with the sweat. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You raised me better than that. You sacrificed everything for me, and when you needed me for 1 week, I said no." He covered his face with his hands. "What kind of man does that?" I felt my own eyes burning but kept my composure. I turned to Ashley. She was staring at her hands, her expensive manicure chipped and ruined. When she looked up, her face was puffy and her eyes red. "I have no excuse," she said quietly. "I could say I was stressed about work, or that Emma being sick made me short-tempered, but none of that matters. You needed help. You called us scared and asking for something completely reasonable, and I mocked you." She swallowed hard. "I told you that you wouldn't die from a little heat. Who says that to a 6 to 7-year-old woman with high blood pressure? Who says that to anyone? Someone who's never truly suffered," I said. "Someone who's never had to beg for help. Someone who thought cruelty was consequence-free." "You're right." Ashley nodded. "I've always had safety nets. My parents, money, options. I've never been desperate. And I looked at you asking for help and saw it as an inconvenience instead of what it was, a mother who needed her family." She wiped her eyes with her ruined sleeve. "I understand if you can't forgive me. But I need you to know that I will never dismiss someone's pain again. Ever. What you did today, making us feel what you felt, I deserved that. Michael deserved that. And I'm grateful you protected Emma and Lucas from our mistakes." The room was quiet except for the cartoons playing in the background. I believed them. I could see it in their faces, hear it in their voices. This wasn't performative apology designed to regain access to free babysitting. This was genuine shame, real understanding. But I wasn't done yet. "Here's what happens now," I said. "You can stay here as long as you need while your AC gets fixed. All of you. I'll make up the guest room and Emma and Lucas can use the pull-out couch." Relief washed over them. "But things are going to change. I'm not your on-call babysitter anymore. I'm not your backup plan or your free labor. I'm your mother and grandmother, and that means I'm someone you treat with respect, consideration, and gratitude. When I say I have plans, you don't ask me to cancel them. When I say I can't do something, you don't push. When I need help, You say yes. Absolutely, Michael said immediately. And Ashley, I continued, you're going to apologize to me in front of Emma and Lucas. Age appropriately, but they need to hear you acknowledge that you were wrong. They need to see adults take accountability. Ashley nodded. Of course. They should see that. One more thing. I looked between them. I want you to think about the last 9 years. Think about how many times I said yes when I wanted to say no. Think about how many weekends, evenings, and holidays I gave you without complaint. Think about how easy it's been to take me for granted. They both nodded, faces somber. I want you to think about that, and then I want you to treat me the way you'd want Emma and Lucas to treat you when you're 6 to 7 years old and need help. We will, Michael whispered. I promise. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. Now, let's get you both properly hydrated, and then you can shower. You smell like a locker room. Ashley actually laughed, a startled sound that broke the tension. Michael smiled weakly. As I filled glasses with ice water and sliced lemons, I felt the anger that had sustained me for 2 weeks finally begin to drain away. It left exhaustion in its wake, but also something else, peace. The peace of someone who'd drawn a line, enforced a boundary, and been heard. They stayed 5 days while their AC was repaired. During that time, Ashley did apologize to the children, explaining in simple terms that she'd been unkind to Grandma and that grown-ups make mistakes too. Emma had hugged me fiercely and whispered, I'm glad you're okay, Grandma. Lucas had asked very seriously if I had enough water at my house, and if I promised to always call them if I needed help. I promise, I'd told him. And your mom and dad promised to always answer. Michael had looked at the floor, accepting the gentle rebuke. On the morning they finally left, their AC repaired and their life returning to normal, Michael hugged me at the door. I'll never take you for granted again, he said. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm grateful for it. You're my son, I said simply. We get more chances with the people we love. But we don't get infinite chances. Remember that. He nodded and ushered his family to the car. Ashley paused at the door, her designer purse over her shoulder, looking more subdued than I'd ever seen her. Thank you for teaching me something I should have already known, she said. And thank you for not turning us away when it mattered most. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. I know, I said with a slight smile. Now you know 2-3 months later, in mid-October when Phoenix finally cooled to something approaching habitable, I hosted Sunday dinner. It had become a weekly tradition, one that Michael and Ashley had initiated and actually showed up for, consistently, with gratitude and wine. Emma was helping me set the table while Lucas built an elaborate Lego fortress in the corner. Michael was grilling in the backyard, and Ashley was tossing salad in my kitchen. Margaret, Ashley said quietly, I got a promotion. That's wonderful. Congratulations. It means more travel. More demands. More stress. She set down the salad tongs and turned to face me. And I wanted you to know that we've already talked to my sister about being our backup childcare. I'm not going to ask you to fill in the gaps. You've done enough. I felt something warm spread through my chest. I appreciate that. But you know I still love spending time with them. Of course. And we'll still ask if you want to take them sometimes. But not because we need free childcare. Because they love you and you love them. That's different. It is different, I agreed. Michael came in with a platter of grilled chicken, grinning. Smells amazing in here. Mom, your house always smells like home. That's because I cook with butter and love, I said. Over dinner, Emma told us about her science project on desert animals. Lucas demonstrated his new ability to recite the alphabet backward. We laughed, passed dishes, and existed together in the easy warmth of family that functions as it should. As they were leaving that evening, arms full of leftovers I'd insisted they take, Michael pulled me aside. I called Dad last week, he said quietly. My ex-husband. I hadn't spoken to him in over 20 years. I told him about what happened this summer. I told him how you raised me by yourself, how hard you worked, how much you sacrificed. And I told him that I almost became like him, someone who abandoned you when you needed help. Michael. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, You're lucky she gave you another chance. I never got one. And he was right. I'm lucky, Mom. I won't waste it. He hugged me tight. This man I'd raised from a colicky infant to someone who could admit his failures and choose to be better. After they left, I stood in my kitchen washing dishes, looking out at my small backyard where the oleander was finally blooming after the brutal summer. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't lonely. Solitude and loneliness, I'd learned, were entirely different things.